Hello, Governor. Welcome to the workforce session of our Rhode Island 2030
Hello there, Stephen.
program.
How you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm not in the best connection right now, but I wanted to come on and talk about the 2030 plan that we've been working on and
Thank you, Governor.
how important that is for us and these programs that you've been able to organize with our Lieutenant Governor Matos. And tonight, I know you got a great program. Certainly getting people back to work right now is a big deal for us out of the pandemic. We know that it's a challenge for many businesses. When we met this morning, Stephen, we talked about that. I know that the 401 Works program has been really, a strong effort during a difficult time. I think that Director Weldon has done a great job on that. I think we have over, as we talked this morning, over 10,000 people back to work since the program started. 2,600 are still connected to the unemployment but working, and I think there's over 9,000 people who were able to increase their income. So, I mean, kudos to Matt and all the DLT and his team there on that. But we got to keep on going, and I know that you've had programs that predated me that we're still supporting in terms of job training and job development. That is training people every week to get back into the workforce and taking advantage of some of the great opportunities that are out there right now. I think that the demand for our workforce is great because there's so many good jobs out there right now, whether it's Electric Boat, Fidelity, in the hospitality industry. And you've got people representing that on the program tonight. So I just want to say that this Rhode Island 2030 is a really important step for the state of Rhode Island to kind of project out where we're going to be in 2030. And then using some of the federal stimulus dollars to help launch that, but then also to kind of create this economy in the state that supports this effort, whether it has to do with the, the workforce development or housing or higher ed or, K through 12, as we've been working on, or, the life sciences or the, all the different, last week you had a great program on, children and families, youth and families. So thank you for doing that, Stefan. I'll hand it over. I don't know if Sabina's with us tonight, but if she is, I'll hand it back to you. And thanks, Sabina, on her, as she's approaching her 100th day or has actually gone past the 100th day, but I'm so proud of her. Today, I thought it was the 100th day today. So proud of you, Sabina, in terms of getting all 39 cities and towns and then participating in this forum in a way to be a leader in terms of helping direct the plan for Rhode Island 2030. And I think we're going to have a lot more to say about that in the coming weeks, because we're getting so much information in that we're going to be able to start to actually create an outline for that, provide it to the General Assembly members, talk about how we can actually accelerate the opportunities we have in the state. And so thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor, for your efforts here. And I'll sign off and I'll listen in.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you so much for joining us, Governor.
Thank you, Governor. And yes, I have to say it has been a great experience visiting the 39 cities and towns of the state of Rhode Island and having the opportunity to hear firsthand from the business owners what are the challenges that they're having, that they're facing right now. And one thing a theme that keeps coming back every time is the workforce. There are business owners that have been telling us that they have jobs available and they're not able to fill those jobs. And as the governor said, we have to thank Director Matt Weldon because his team has been working really hard to make sure that they can assist those business owners that are looking for a workforce and employees. This is another great conversation we're going to have today about workforce. We're going to be hearing from the panels and from the experts in this area. I was so happy to see that we're going to be having a conversation, and we're going to be listening also from Senator Lou DePalma. So grateful for him and what he's been doing and his leadership. And Secretary, I just have to say, you and me has been doing this this week. We've been together 3 times. I think it's official. We have to send a demo to a TV show because a TV station, because we need our show now, right?
We do it, as I keep saying, and I mean it. You're going to take the ratings up, and I'm going to take them down, but maybe we'll do okay in the end. But Lieutenant Governor, it's a pleasure. We've done multiple topics this week alone, including your very, very productive housing forum with a focus on homelessness. Congratulations on conducting that yesterday. A lot of work to do coming out of it.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a lot of work to do, but we're ready for it. And we thank you for your leadership and your work.
Thank you, ma'am. And congratulations on your 100th day. And I'm glad we could cap it with this program on the crucial issue of workforce, which you've also emphasized.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We're so grateful to Governor McKee and Lieutenant Governor Matos for creating this forum. We are, in fact, exploring the issues pertaining to the making of a very strong recovery coming out of the COVID crisis and propelling Rhode Island into the next decade, 2030 and beyond. That's the idea behind these sessions. This is our 9th gathering online through this format. We've been conducting conversations about the economy, housing, children and families, health, subsets within the economy, such as the blue economy. Here we are today talking about workforce development and the workforce of Rhode Island and how we can support the services and support the workforce itself. Such a crucial conversation. Each and every time we are joined by leaders from the General Assembly here in Rhode Island, we're so grateful for the partnership with Speaker Shekarchi and President Ruggiero and the leaders and members of the General Assembly. Today, we are joined by Terry Cordfriend, who's a state representative, of course, from District 72. Representative Cordfriend is in Portsmouth and Middletown. Ben, let's go ahead and bring the representative on. So glad to have you. And you serve as second vice chair of the House Small Business Committee. And you're the owner of Ocean Link, which is a marine plumbing firm. You have multiple perspectives on the economy and on workforce. And Representative, we're so grateful for your joining us today. To you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for giving Ocean Link a plug. And we have 3 job openings at Ocean Link. So I'll just start with that and echo. I'll just say something for all the small businesses that I've talked to, and everybody is operating on reduced capacity and because of this workforce shortage. So hopefully that's going to change in the very near future. But thank you so much for having me this evening. I bring greetings from the House and Speaker Shekarchi, and want folks who are listening to know that workforce development is a priority in our chamber, especially in these times as we all work to build back better, just to borrow on a phrase that I've heard you all use, and of course our President Biden. We are supporting many programs through investments in education, in higher ed, and worker training opportunities. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of those. In addition to making the Rhode Island Scholarship permanent, the Promise Scholarship, we have funding. We are also funding higher education, the Career in Tech Training Center in Westerly. This is a public-private collaboration that brings together higher ed, business, and industry, and offers high quality programs. I was really impressed. I was doing some research this afternoon for this conversation, and they have quite an elaborate selection of training opportunities, including maritime pipe fitting, sheet metal, electrical training, CNA training, process training, water treatment training. I was so impressed with all the different opportunities that Westerly is offering. We are also, business owners can go to the Westerly facility apparently and use their space too to train their existing workforce. So I thought that was just a really nice thing. I'm glad I learned about that. And for businesses in that area, they should take advantage of that. We are also funding a wound socket, a similar program, a wound socket career in tech center for high school kids. And they have one of 5 P-Tech programs. And another one of those P-Tech programs is housed right here on Aquidneck Island and at Rogers. And I've met with some of those students. That's an incredible program. And those kids are studying cybersecurity and get to work in our local defense industry. So that's a program that the public should know about. I also want to tell people that in this past session, we passed legislation to ensure that all students who wish to pursue a career in tech educational pathway, that there is a new program that will allow them to go out of district if the program that they don't want isn't housed in their district. So this will allow students interested in career and tech education programs to be able to enroll in the regional career and tech centers. And if they have a desire to do something that's not offered in their district, they can go outside their district. And as a former school committee member, I know that our high schools have really grown career tech training across the state. So students should be aware that the opportunities have recently been expanded. And finally, I want to touch on Real Jobs, which is something that my business has taken advantage of. It's housed at Commerce, and it allows businesses to hire employees, take them off the unemployment rolls, bring them in, and to provide training to them. And the state offers financial assistance to do that through the grant process. And small business owners should really know about that right now, because the job market is what it is. There's a lot of people still on the sidelines, and you could take advantage of the opportunity to bring them into your business and have the state help defer the cost of training them. So I think with that, that is what I have to say tonight, and I look forward to listening to the speaker. And thank you, Secretary Pryor, for having me this evening. And I hope I can come back again.
Thank you, Representative. We would welcome you back again, and you've contributed to the dialogue across our state, and we welcome you to this very forum. And to prove it that we may welcome you back again, we are going to re-invite Senator Lou DePalma onto the screen. Viewers of this 2030 show have seen Senator DePalma help us introduce subjects before. We're so grateful to the Senator. He's one of the most engaged in the General Assembly with our work. Ben, let's bring Lou if we can. Here we go. Hopefully, Senator, your connection is working. Fantastic. Senator DePalma represents District 12, Little Compton, Middletown, Newport, Tiverton. He's the chair of the Rules Committee in the Senate. He's the first vice chair of the Finance Committee in the Senate, and he's a member of the Education Committee in the Senate, all topics germane to the subject of workforce. And he's a technical director at Raytheon, so sees from the perspective of an engineer in the midst of a very important company, how the workforce intersects with our economy, and sees the needs of industry as pertains to workforce firsthand. So, Senator, welcome back, and the floor is yours.
Mr. Secretary, glad to be back, and good evening to everyone. I want to thank Governor McKee and Lieutenant Governor Matos for bringing us all together today to discuss the important topic of workforce development and how we can best support and nurture the state's labor force to meet the economic challenges of today and clearly tomorrow. Obviously, thank you for you as well bringing me back. It was great to talk about the defense economy, something I've been in for 38 years. And a special thank you to Director Matt Weldon, Director of Labor, Department of Labor and Training, which we'll talk about in a bit. We all know that the COVID-19 has decimated our economy. Millions are either unemployed or severely unemployed across the country, thousands in Rhode Island. The pandemic has also shifted the way of doing business to new alternatives, which we need to seize, and which in turn has also caused significant changes to Rhode Island's workforce and the type of jobs individuals are seeking in this hopefully soon post-COVID economy. In order to maximize these states' resources from the pandemic, workforce development should be viewed as a crucial aspect of how the state moves forward in the future. We all agree on that. I think simply put, our residents need to be trained for the well-paying jobs of tomorrow, and the state should look at workforce development as one of its highest priorities. And I think we're doing that, and we need to stay that course. To invest in workforce development is to invest in our residents' successes. And when our residents are successful, Rhode Island will be successful. And I think that's a fact. That's something that I think upon which everyone can and will agree. The question becomes, how can we all accomplish the important task? Programs such as making the Rhode Island Promise Scholarship permanent and others are leading the charge, and they are doing good work. We just memorialized that and made that into Rhode Island general law this past session. But we need to do more in order for our residents to excel. In fact, Real Jobs Rhode Island also needs to be made permanent. We also need to ensure all Rhode Islanders are included in the conversation. All Rhode Islanders, including and especially those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and all with disabilities. And included in that are those who support those individuals in living the life to the fullest. A factor addressing this and other critical health and human service workers is the wages these employees earn, and the state is front and center in those wages. Training for those jobs without the wages would be foolhardy. So we need to address both of those as we do that. I thank you all again. Governor McKee, Lieutenant Governor Matos, Secretary Pryor, Director Weldon, for their invitation to participate in tonight's event. I look forward to continuing to work with you through the rest of this year into next session and beyond, in the stated goal of building a vibrant and strong economy for all Rhode Island residents. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I look forward to listening to all the speakers and the active panel that you have coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Senator. And Director Weldon and I are so grateful for your partnership. Governor McKee, Lieutenant Governor Matos, and I are grateful. And we appreciate the participation of the General Assembly in this series on Rhode Island 2030. Now we're very pleased to introduce our lead presenter tonight, and it's Zoe Baird, who's the president and CEO of the Markle Foundation. And we're so pleased that Ms. Baird was able to find the time to join us. She's joining us from our nearby adjacent neighboring state of Connecticut. And Zoe Baird has been president of the Markle Foundation for over 20 years now, directing the foundation's priority towards advancing a labor market that will enable workers to move into good, well-paying jobs in the digital economy. So a perfect match for this dialogue today. Markle has formed the Rework America Alliance, which helps low and middle wage workers move into better jobs, and the Skillful State Network, which brings together state governments to transform the labor market collaboratively. All those would be good reasons for Ms. Baird to join us, but you should know that on the ground, the Markle Foundation under Ms. Baird is helping us make things happen here in Rhode Island, working with Director Weldon and the Department of Labor and Training team. The Governor's Coaching Corps and Skillful Employer Initiative right here are happening because of investments from Markle and their partnerships. So you have on-the-ground experience here in Rhode Island, you and your team do. So Ms. Baird, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to your remarks. After your remarks, we'll be joined by a panel. So now to you, Zoe Baird.
Thank you very much. It is really a pleasure to be with you. The first time I went to Rhode Island, I was in my 20s, and I slept probably illegally on a beach when I went there for a concert. So I have very fond, long-standing memories of Rhode Island, many more recent, but it's really a pleasure to be back with you, if only virtually. I want to compliment the governor and the secretary on their leadership in moving the state forward in a way that lets everyone find their place in the digital economy with good pay and with security. Your goals are fabulous, and the fact that you're being so thoughtful about them, it really is a privilege to observe and participate in. I started working with Rhode Island under Governor Raimondo's leadership, and I'm still in touch with her regularly, and I can report to you that she is taking Washington by storm. It won't surprise you, but she's involved in everything. And just today, she announced that her Department of Commerce will invest $3 billion in economic development in our nation's communities, and I expect that Rhode Island will get its share. You know, to be quite serious for a moment here. The COVID pandemic has really put in stark relief the underlying problems in the labor market. Workers are coming back into a labor market that's permanently changed and finding that the pace of change has been accelerated. We're all very aware that consumers are now relying on e-commerce even more than before. Businesses are adopting automation and more people are working remotely, forcing workers to adapt in order to be successful in their jobs. And computer skills are increasingly necessary across most sectors, whether you're a FedEx truck driver using technology for time management and tracking of packages, or whether you're in a small business that's pivoted to enable clients to book services or buy products online, or whether you're a restaurant that used to print your menus each day and now somebody has to be able to post them so that people can access them from their cell phone and use services that provide delivery. Even good jobs in construction now require significant technical training. The building trades has great apprenticeships, but they don't look anything like they did 10 years ago because of all the technology that's been introduced. I've been known to say in the past that it used to be that to break down a brick wall, you used a sledgehammer, and now you use a robot. And I think that you're seeing that probably all across your state, that jobs of every sort are being changed dramatically by technology. There's good results from that. I mean, it used to take a lot of physical strength, and there was a lot of risk of injury in many construction jobs or building trades jobs. And now those can be undertaken more safely, and they can even be inviting to women who have not been well represented in those jobs. But we know that that transformation is going to require employers, unions, community colleges, and other organizations to provide a kind of rapid and affordable training that leads to higher wages and better jobs. And it's a system that we've never built. And some of the jobs that have been lost won't come back. So it's particularly important that people be able to get into either jobs that are adjacent that might have changed somewhat, or new jobs altogether. All these forces have come together to really hammer most the lowest wage workers, who are heavily Latino and Black. There are more than 4 million unemployed workers from low and mid-wage roles still, and this is about 44% of all unemployed people, and over a quarter are Latino and almost as many are Black. Many workers of color and workers without a four-year degree were disproportionately impacted, in part because they work in sectors like retail, tourism, and hospitality. And as these jobs come back, some employers are asking themselves, well, why aren't people coming back to these jobs? And one of the things I think we need to focus on is workers will come back to good jobs. They know they have the capability to do good work. So are they not coming back to some of the jobs because those jobs aren't good jobs? They don't have the wages, they don't have the support, we don't have the transportation to get people there, the childcare, and a lot of those structures have also fallen away during the COVID pandemic. So it's terrific that you're looking holistically at this challenge. Training can't be seen in isolation, and training isn't for training's sake. For most people, the kind of training we're talking about is training to get into better jobs with higher wages and greater security and greater opportunity. You know, 100 years ago, we invented an education system called the high school. Before that, there really wasn't a high school system. And when we moved from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy, we invented this common platform of education so that people could move into the industrial economy and succeed. And what we haven't yet done, and what you're working on in Rhode Island, is to invent that education system that moves us from the industrial economy to the digital economy, where we need broadly accessible, rapid, affordable training, where people have the flexible funding to cover tuition, as well as the support services that I mentioned. And that's going to require us to look at a very broad range of training opportunities and to tie them together with our growth jobs in the state and the potential federal investments that will help people get into better jobs. One of the things we're trying to do with the Rework America Alliance, which is an alliance of businesses, tech companies, civil rights organizations, unions, nonprofits, is we're trying to do the work of enabling people to understand which good jobs are in demand, that they, through their own experience and capabilities, are a good fit for. So training is a component of this, but for a lot of these jobs, people actually have, and someone mentioned adjacent jobs, people actually have a lot of experience in a job that's very relevant to a new in-demand, good-paying job. And so we need to reveal that so that individuals, the coaches and counselors that you invest in through the Workforce Center, and employers who are trying to strengthen their workforce, to diversify their workforce, are able to find the people who are great candidates for these jobs. So we've put out a number of tools. We're personalizing that to different geographies. You can do that yourself using these tools. But the notion is that somebody who's been working, for example, as a concierge in an office building or a hotel or a building service coordinator, coordinating the services to the customers in the business, in the building, the people whose offices are there, they can take their customer service and problem solving skills, and they'd be a great candidate for a role like a computer user support specialist who helps people troubleshoot computer problems. And employers are able to train people in the specific application of their skills to the particular business, but they need to think about the fact that there's a whole range of experience and know-how that people bring from a job that is very transferable, but it's not the traditional place where we have looked for workers. So this is very important to us in the Rework America Alliance, but it's very important to you in thinking about yourself and how do you get the marketplace to respect and honor the things you know how to do. I published an op-ed recently with Mark Morial, the president of the Urban League, and Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft. And the point we were trying to make is maybe people aren't coming back into the labor market because they know they're qualified to do better jobs than the jobs that are on offer. Well, we should honor that. We should enable people to get into those jobs. And this is very much what we're trying to do. And I think the state has a great opportunity to enable people to succeed in this way as they come into the labor market, as they look for new opportunities in the labor market. And as employers are looking at the challenge of attracting people back, I think they should engage with workers to talk with them about what they'd like to see when they come back into those jobs, because it's not just pay that people are looking for. Throughout the country, workers are looking for what some people are calling greater worker voice. And in companies or sectors where there's union representation, that voice comes through the unions. But where that representation doesn't exist, there's a tremendous opportunity to make work environments more successful, to reduce turnover, to create opportunities for people to grow within your industry or your company. And those opportunities will be fulfilled as you engage with workers and understand what it is they're looking for in a workplace and what the barriers are for them. So we need to provide training for people in a new and innovative way. We need to grow more good jobs, but we also need to engage with workers and understand what people need and what the barriers are for them to succeed. And often those barriers are simply failing to recognize their capabilities. We're about to enter a period, if all falls together in the right way, where there will be major federal investments in infrastructure. And if that happens, that's going to catalyze several million jobs over the next 10 years, most of which can be filled without a bachelor's degree. Those roles, if you think of the life cycle of infrastructure, go from some of the early administrative planning, proposal, accounting, budgeting roles, through to the construction phases and the management of new infrastructure. So there's a broad range of roles. Most of what people think of as infrastructure jobs are jobs that have not been inclusive of women. About 90% of typical construction type infrastructure jobs are men. But in addition to trying to open those jobs up to women and to people of color, there is a need to think about the whole life cycle of those jobs. And as the state approaches this, should this happen, or as you're using some of the funds that you have now from the federal government, there's an opportunity to think about the full life cycle of work in a sector and all the jobs that can be good jobs for people with those investments. So I really have valued the fact that we've been invited to work with Rhode Island and that we continue to do that. Rhode Island is a member, as was mentioned, of our state network, which is 30 states around the country who are working together to do what they can't do alone, which is to really get the best ideas from each other, to understand each other's laws that enable things, laws that are barriers, to understand the operating programs that are beneficial, those that stand in the way, to understand where employers feel jobs will grow, and to apply that knowledge across the country. So we've taken a lot of what you've learned and what you've done in Rhode Island and shared it out around the country. And I've said many times before, this state network that we run came about because Gina Raimondo said to me, what you're doing in Colorado and Indiana, which is where we first started, we need to bring to Rhode Island. Can you give me skillful in a box? And I said, let's do more than that. Let's make this a national network. And she was really instrumental in that. And so Rhode Island has had a big impact nationally that you may not sometimes appreciate, but we're grateful for it. There's so much to do. There are so many people who are still struggling. And some of you may be people who are facing tremendous barriers. So we need communities to come together, employers, nonprofits, state leaders, educators, and all work toward a common goal to get people back into the workforce, into good jobs, and to help those in the workforce in low-wage jobs to move into better jobs, because this recovery needs to look different than any recovery we've had before. When we came back after 2009, we came back into a barbell economy. People came back into low-wage jobs, or they came back into very high-wage jobs, and there was very little in the middle. And if we're going to grow the middle class, we need to bring people back into the labor market, into good jobs, and we need to honor the talents and capabilities and experience that people have had and enable them to move into better, higher-wage jobs. This is what will let businesses grow. You know, I've worked at GE for many years. I worked at Aetna for many years. We work now with some of your employers, large and small, in Rhode Island. And businesses will grow if they have the workforce that they need. And if we can make these jobs great jobs that take advantage of people's experience and capabilities, and that give people promise and opportunity and inspire them to keep learning, that's great for business, it's great for the state, and it's great for every individual in the state. So I thank you for inviting me to join you, and I look forward to helping any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Baird. That was terrific. Exactly the kind of opening set of remarks we were hoping for. And we very much agree that the integration of Rhode Island into this national network has been invaluable to us. And we're so grateful that you catalyzed this conversation for us today. Now we're going to move on and invite the panel to react to Zoe Baird's comments, and Director Matt Weldon is going to take over and start to interact with the panel and ask questions. So Ms. Baird, we know that you need to depart at some point very soon, and we're going to intro those panelists in your presence.
Great.
So thank you once again. That was really splendid and right on the mark.
Thank you.
So on our panel tonight, very distinguished panel, we have Shannon Brawley, who's the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Nursery and Landscape Association, or RINLA, and has been in that position since 2010. We're so grateful that you're able to join us, Shannon. Dave Chenevert is Executive Director of the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association, and he's been Executive Director since 2017. He ran his own business, Swiss Line Products, so he was a manufacturing chief executive and brings that experience into play every single day as one of our closest collaborative partners. Dave, we're so grateful to you. Mike Gray is Vice President at Sodexo, and in addition to his executive position in the private sector, is chair of the Governor's Workforce Board right here in Rhode Island. I serve as his vice chair, and I'm so grateful for his leadership in animating the work of the GWB. Mike joined Sodexo in 1991 and is now the North American Vice President of Northeast Operations. So thank you, Mike, for all that you do and for your participation today. Nina Pandey is someone who's also rejoining the 2030 conversation. Nina was part of an earlier session we held on higher education as it intersects with workforce issues. And Ms. Pandey is joining us yet again. She's Executive Director of Skills for Rhode Island's Future, very important partner for Director Weldon, for all of us, and a very important workforce player and much more. Nina's connecting employers to job seekers on a day-to-day basis, running those programs, inventing new ones, and creating energy for the workforce of Rhode Island. I'm going to turn it over to Director Matt Weldon to complete the introductions and to kick us off.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, and everybody, and thank you, Ms. Baird, and of course, this distinguished panel. I appreciate everybody's time and help here. We're all doing our part. Michelle Pugh, Director of Workforce Education at Amos House, who has worked, in that capacity, works with Amos House, which is a nonprofit based in Providence that aims to help people help themselves out of oppression, homelessness, and poverty. A big part of the population that we're trying to help are people that have traditionally been looked past. And when I talk to Nina and other people, we talk about how we can bring diversity and inclusion to all our workforce needs, and I appreciate that you're here, Michelle. Pat Quinn, a friend is the Vice President of Service Employees International Union, SEIU, District 1199, I'm sorry, Pat. He's the Executive Vice President. In his role, he helps to coordinate the long-term campaigns and day-to-day operations of the union, represents healthcare workers throughout Rhode Island. And Melissa Travis, President and CEO of the Rhode Island Society of CPAs. Melissa is currently the President and CEO of the Society and the Vice Chair of the Rhode Island Business Coalition in that role. She focuses on assisting organization members and maintaining a business climate that creates jobs and sustains a robust economy. And thank you very much, Melissa, for being a great partner. Okay, we'd like to ask everybody, we just heard Zoe Baird give us some comments, talk about some of the things that are happening across the country and right here in Rhode Island. You're our workforce development professionals in Rhode Island. What do we think? I would say open it up and everybody talk a little bit about what you just heard, your reaction, and where you think we are with workforce development, where we need to be, and how we meet those challenges that we just talked about. Who wants to kick it off?
Certainly. Director Weldon, it's Nina Pandey at Skills for Rhode Island's Future. I want to thank you and Secretary Pryor, the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Senator and Representative for being here and giving us this platform to speak about workforce development. I think the comments that Ms. Baird made were spot on. I think her reference of digital transformation and how it's really changing the workforce is something that we've been seeing for a little bit of time, but has been really accelerated as a result of the pandemic, and people have been forced to interact even at work differently. Even us here, we're working remotely, and technology has taken on a whole new meaning through the pandemic. And I think we're at this moment in time where Rhode Island can really set the bar on what job training, upskilling, reskilling, and thinking about our new economy can look like with the opportunities that are put in place. And I also agree with Ms. Baird that there's a foundation that we can build on. And we've planted those seeds to continue the conversation on how do we ensure that every Rhode Islander, regardless of zip code, regardless of nationality, regardless of language or position in life, you have an opportunity and a pathway to a well-paying middle-class job. And I think that that can be done right here in Rhode Island, but we cannot forget the fact that there is a lot of upskilling and reskilling that we need to do. And with a remote working environment, the competition for talent is going to be fierce, right? People don't have to hire place-based anymore if we're going to continue to create this remote and hybrid environment. And so Rhode Island has this opportunity to be the best and brightest in some of these segments of the economy that we know are going to be growing.
Well, thank you, Nina. You know, one of the things that I heard when Zoe was presenting was that, you know, people have skills. They have, maybe they think don't qualify them for new opportunities, but we all know they absolutely do. And sometimes through job training programs and initiatives like the Real Jobs program, we can find out what those transferable skills were, use those as a foundation, and build to a place of success. And I think that some of you, and I know many of you have been involved with Real Jobs, and can talk about how that platform has enabled us to try to help people see their potential and put them on good tracks to good middle class jobs. You know, Shannon, you know, through the work that you're doing, what do you think about what we heard from Ms. Baird and how Vinla's involved in that?
So I agree with Ms. Baird around the need for meaningful jobs and jobs that where someone would feel like they're part of a solution. We find many individuals coming into RINLA's Growing Futures programming looking for to be a part of responding to climate change. And so our industry is at the forefront of that. We are the first responders, and we are part of that solution in adaptation techniques. I would say that also individuals are looking for not necessarily to go immediately right on to a 4-year college. They're looking for alternatives, like a registered apprenticeship program. And RINLA has a registered apprenticeship program where young people can grow and earn while you learn, while also receiving educational opportunities. We have a lot of interest around that kind of programming. And I think also with our career catalysts, we've gotten to know different candidates, and I believe what Nina said and also what Zoe Baird said in terms of transferable skills. We have folks that were behind a computer and want to work outside or work in the work, in the office, and many of those skills are transferable to our industry as well. So I think she speaks the truth. I also think that technology is a key piece for many parts of our industry. I think we really, when we were responding with our career catalyst, the need for a hybrid education and the need to access technology and broadband was very needed. And I think skills helped us to help our candidates get the technology that was needed so that they could learn.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Shannon. Other general reactions, and then, I'm happy to jump in with questions, but I'd love to hear what you thought.
Hey, Director, this is Patrick from 1199. Hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to participate. This is great. I thought, a couple of themes that Ms. Baird hit on were really good, which is we have to do better in this recovery. This pandemic and this economy didn't land on everyone the same. A lot of people were really, really hit hard, and many people were uninterrupted at all. So I do second the ideas that Nina put out there, which are around technology. Give you a quick example. some of our employers, the only way to make a appointment to get your vaccine was online. And not everybody has a wired connection. Most of the time it's through their phone. If they make, less than say $35,000 a year, they don't pay a couple $100 a month to, Cox and to Verizon. So it's very important that we expand that digital literacy to, even entry level workers, because a lot of functions are the normal functions of any business have moved to that platform. And then I think also very important, recognizing that the job that you have is not the only job that you can do. And that's something that, sometimes people get pigeonholed. And so we should, reward employers who spend money on training, because retention, is the other side of the coin, right? The fewer people who leave you, the fewer people you need to recruit. So retention and recruitment go hand in hand. So having, built out, whether it's a whole, apprenticeship thing, as we've done with the help of DLT and other people in healthcare, or whether it's, mentorship, or whether it's career paths, all of those things can help reduce turnover. And those are really, really important, because once you lose somebody, now you're out there competing, so my feeling about it is we do need to, change our focus about what infrastructure is. Home care, child care, those are things that really enable, particularly women, to get back into the workforce. A lot of people had to leave the workforce, no school, no child care. So those are really, really important themes that she hit on. And I think we should just be striving to raise this, this recovery really needs to do better by the lowest wage workers. We should judge it by how we move people up. And we do need, as Senator Palmer said, we need to, where the public sector has control over it, the public sector needs to pay better. The traditionally paid people, particularly women of color and low wage workers, overly represented there, really, really poor wages. So training people for a low wage, high turnover job is a bad model. It never was a good model, and it's even a worse model in these circumstances. So I appreciate everyone's thoughts and comments. And Director Pryor, Governor McKee, appreciate you including us in this discussion. I'm happy to answer give you any other feedback. Matt, great to work with you.
Well, you as well, Pat. Thank you very much for all that you do. Any other general reactions?
I'll share that I did appreciate everything that was said in the keynote address. It really resonates with me, because as an employer and also someone who's engaged in the workforce development system for several years now, we really do focus a lot on churning people through programs and measure ourselves on numbers of people that we have moved through traditionally. And we try to change that now to more of a quality measurement, a quality metric that really helps us to understand, helps us to measure what measurable skills people get and how that translates for them over time. So as we talk about the entry points of workforce development, which often is training and development programs, it's often an intake of some kind and an assignment of some development. We then have to move on and can't stop there as enough or as a measurement of how successful we are. It's really more about the attainable skills that people get and the transformational outcomes that it makes in their lives. We have a community of people here on this call representing lots of different sectors in our economy that understand that and get that. And the more I hear nationally about these kinds of workforce development issues, the more I hear people talk about, that measurable skills and then over time impacts. So when Zoe Baird talked about the great work that they're doing, she talked about high wage, high demand, or high wage in demand. That is really a function of understanding what the workforce needs, understanding who is in the workforce, what employers need, and then matching the two. So a lot of critical work has been done around that. Zoe Baird spoke a lot about that, because that's really critical to the ultimate success of anything we do as workforce development professionals or industry and professionals and representatives is making those matches and then having those skills that follow people throughout their career and into hopefully multiple jobs, not just the next job, right? Things that are stackable, credentials that can make a difference in people's lives. Ultimately, that's really what it's about. Make a difference in a person's life. That person is happy with the organization. That person contributes. The organization is successful. That's really where it starts and how it progresses through time.
Taking a note when you were saying that, the whole concept of in-demand jobs and growth should be, investment should be where job growth is. That is the bedrock of the Real Jobs program, right? And so as we talk about, investing in training opportunities and investing in industries and sectors, what I like to think about is that's right and that's fine, but that means it's an investment in the individual because they're getting the benefit of that training. They're getting those portable credentials, hopefully, and that's going to follow them as their career trajectory goes up. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do through the model that we have right now and future models, I hope. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any other general reactions or thoughts before we grill you with questions?
Matt.
Dave, yes, thank you.
Matt, Mike and I we share our positions at the Governor's Workforce Board, but we're also on the CTE Board of Trustees. And Mike made a point about high demand, high growth, high wages. And that's the goal of the CTE Board in developing programs in the schools that are in those particular jobs that our youth will be able to fill because they're needed. And I think it's vitally important, as right now we have over 15,000 students working in the CTE program, that we marriage the Real Jobs program with the CTE Job Advisory Committee, which is involved with about 19 different type of industries. And they monitor how those industries are growing or not growing. Work in business is a moving target. What is going on today may not be there in 5 years. So we really need to have a partnership put together between the CTE a group, especially their job advisory committee, with Real Jobs, so that we're on the same path and we're having the kids learn the jobs that are giving us the high demand, high growth, and high wages. And if we're going to be talking about workforce development, in my mind, we need to look beyond the scope of just talking about jobs. We really need to talk about how do we get people to those jobs. And Matt, you and I have already been involved with a transportation discussion. And Reimer is leading a program called Have Jobs Will Travel in conjunction with Pawtucket, Central Falls, Woonsocket, and Providence, and with the Rhode Island Foundation with Neil Steinberg. And the goal of what we're trying to accomplish with this program is to get those who do not have the means of traveling with their own vehicle to get them to an industrial site or industrial park so they can see these high wage, high growth, high demand jobs that are in the manufacturing sector right now. And so we're using Quonset Point as our guinea pig, per se, and how we want to do that. But that's going to require some time. It's going to require funding, which is where we should be talking and looking at right now based on the funds that we've retrieved into the state of Rhode Island. So there's a little bit more than just looking at workforce development as far as what careers are available. But we also need to make sure that we can get the employees to those particular jobs. The other aspect I'd like to bring out is Reimer has been working closely with Bryant University, Commerce, and Polaris on the reshoring of jobs coming back into the U.S., not just Rhode Island. But Rhode Island has to change its ways in certain aspects, and I've promoted this numerous times, that our business climate in Rhode Island needs to be part of that solution to bring in more jobs back into the country, into our country and our state, by enticing these people why we should have them come here. Beyond being a beautiful state and a beautiful place to work, we really need to focus on the business climate at hand. And I know Stefan's all about that. I gets it. And I know you do, Matt. But I think that's something that's going to be considered as we're trying to develop a workforce. We need to have businesses here that are going to create the kind of jobs that will pay them high wages, and we want people who want to come to bring their businesses here. So I don't want to keep talking. I could go on for another hour on different subject matters, but I think it's important that those things are part of what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Dave. I agree 100%. We're working on that transportation issue. We know we need to be able to get people to work if they're going to be able to take that work, and it's super important. And one of the things I just heard you say, and I agree so much, is that the job training programs are critical, and we need to help people that have been impacted by this pandemic and the workforce of today. But we can't lose sight on what we need to do for the workforce of tomorrow. And as the very proud parent of a college student who found their passion by participating in a workforce program in high school, I know the value that presents, and I'm very happy to work in this area. So thank you very much. Melissa, what do you think?
I think of all the 2030 community conversations that the people at home and everyone in the state are going to hear, I think today's discussion is probably one of the most important. I am thrilled to actually be part of this event because Zoe Baird was here. I think what she said about technology and the impact, and I knew Nina Pandy was going to say the same thing. This is, especially for my industry and banking, it is literally taken over overnight. 2 years ago, I would say probably 30% of the firms were using data analytics and technology. As of today, it's changed so much that they even changed the exam for our industry. Now has, in 2023, you will not graduate, you will not be able to get into my industry without a 25% technology requirement on that exam. So that's going to be the most important piece of that. Dave and I did a partnership with the data analytics through the Back to Work RI and the Real Jobs program. I think that's been amazing. And I want to say, I also joined the CTE as the industry chair for finance and banking and accounting, because it's so important. If you want to give everyone the same seat at the table, the same chance to be at the table, whether you're low income, a minority student, everyone in the same boat together, making sure these kids have the tools they need, the resources when they graduate. I feel like every single kid should be learning Microsoft Office. So we're trying to make that happen. In my industry, you can actually get a better paying job than a 5-year CPA right now if you know data analytics and technology. If you hold the keys to your future, no matter what your background is, no matter what your education level is, if you're able to sit down at a computer, you can rule the world in my industry. So Matt, I want to thank you for your leadership on the Real Jobs and the Back to Work programs, because that has been invaluable. We were the first state society, as you know, to launch that. Governor McKee supported it so much when he was lieutenant governor. He came to the graduation with the kids and he actually hosted them in his office. So you can imagine on the day he became governor, they were pretty thrilled. But I can't stress enough the importance of the technology component. That's how, it's basically the key to Rhode Island's future.
Absolutely, 100%, Nina.
Matt, if I can also jump in, because I think both, I've already said my piece on the digital technology piece, but I think what Dave is talking about too is ensuring that we're providing the resources to make people whole, and making sure that as we're investing in Rhode Islanders on this Talent Up initiative, or skilling up or reskilling, or looking at these transferable skills. And as we think about workforce development, I'm also a big fan of an earn and learn model, right? So the work that that we've been able to do with Riddler, right? People are getting paid as we are training them. And I think about the folks, Michelle, that you work with at Amos House, right? People want this, but they can't afford to do this, right? And education is expensive. And so I think that as we think about this once in a lifetime opportunity that we keep hearing about, we need to think strategically of how do we make people whole as well. And while they want to go to training, a lot of them feel they can't afford to, because they also need to pay the bills. And so there's that opportunity to make sure that transportation is built into that there is a livable wage that's attached to a training program. And we see the successes of that, right? Shannon knows firsthand, when you're able to tack on livable wages to a training program, people want it. They want to be a part of it. They want to keep growing. They want to keep learning. We are all creatures who want to learn and thrive, but we have to also make it attractive for them to be able to do so. So I don't want to lose the fact that the point that Dave brings up is critical, and you need dollars and resources for that.
I have to say, I want to say thank you for bringing that up, Nina, because in the classes that we held, we had students that had to take 3 and 4 buses to get to the program. So what Dave is talking about, the transportation initiative, that is so key. I was beyond impressed when I found out that somebody took 3 or 4 buses to get to the training. And like you said, I mean, we have a stipend that, and again, thanks to the brilliance of the Real Jobs program design, we were able to incorporate. But a lot of these kids really struggle to attend. It's almost causing a hardship for them to be there. And I do agree. They are brilliant minds, brilliant people that just need a little bit of help, that just need the resources and support to be there. And thank you for bringing that up, because that is certainly a valuable lesson that I learned from the program.
Well, thank you. And Michelle, as you heard, Ms. Baird present, and thinking about the people that you serve and work with every day, how do you think we work together as a workforce system to help those people find their place in our recovering economy?
Yeah, so for our highest risk Rhode Islanders, the previous to COVID, the amount of barriers that they faced to enter gainful employment were high. And now they are, tenfold with the COVID issues. We're looking at things like childcare, transportation, everything that this panel has already mentioned. When we're adding the incredible increase in digital literacy skills needed for even those entry-level jobs, we're starting to reach a real tipping point for individuals that are not able to get all the cards lined up. I think there's a lot of rhetoric around wages, and I think, of course, livable wages is very important. But to be honest, for a lot of high-risk individuals, wages are at the bottom of the list. Can I get to work? Do I have someone to watch my children? Can I even apply for the job? Because everything is digital now. So to piggyback on everything everybody has said, I think really having clear-cut initiatives and funding to tackle these barriers is really the only way that we can get a huge untapped job market and job pool of individuals to these places that so desperately need help. We have the structure and the infrastructure in Rhode Island that can support tackling these barriers with individuals. It really just takes, the funding in order to do that.
Absolutely. And, I'm very proud to work for Governor McKee in this administration, because he came in right away and said he absolutely supported what we're trying to do, because he's trying to help Rhode Island businesses and small businesses not only survive, but thrive. And that means helping Rhode Island's communities and Rhode Islanders. And Governor McKee supported Real Jobs and our training initiatives in his budget. And, our General Assembly did as well. And, thank you to Representative Corcoran and to my good friend, and unfortunately, he's a Yankee fan, Lou DePalma in the Senate. He has great judgment, except for one thing. There's nothing I can do about that. But their support has been so important for the program to succeed and for us to keep doing the work that we're doing. And whether it is through Real Jobs or Real Pathways, one way or another, we're trying to help people get on that track. I'm so happy to have a discussion about how apprenticeship plays into this, because for a long time, I've been saying apprenticeship is one of the best models of a career pathway program. We talked when former Labor Secretary Perez was in Rhode Island. He said apprenticeship was like a college education without the debt, right? And so it's a great opportunity for people to learn right away and earn and go forward. And I know whether we're talking about healthcare workers with 1199, or we're talking about RIMLA's program, we've done so much. In the 10 years I've been at DLT, we've grown the non-traditional apprenticeship programs exponentially. It's been unbelievable. And I only see more growth. I think that's great. And I hope that we can expand that into every industry, because that's another way to get young people engaged as well. Mike Gray, I was interested, you have an interesting perspective as an employer working for a fairly sizable entity. I know you're traveling all the time and you see what happens in states outside of just Rhode Island. How has the public workforce system, helped your company, but also as the chair of the workforce board, how do you see things in Rhode Island as they compare to other states, and what can we do different to, adapt as we get through this economy?
So that's a great question, and it's almost deceptively simple to answer. Our size gives us some measure of power over our destiny, and we have the ability to connect from end to end much more easily than other places. I'm often traveling. Most of my job is outside of the state, so I'm on the road a lot. And when I'm going to places and I'm talking to people I work with and people in the business, clients, and we have the same conversations. I was just in Georgia last weekend, and we were having a great discussion about how nobody can find employees. Same discussion we would have here in Rhode Island. And I was starting to talk about, well, you could call the local workforce investment boards and you could call the state agencies for this, that, and the other thing. And they just did not have a clue as to what I was talking about, because it just never was something that they would even consider doing. They weren't aware of it. It wasn't something that was publicized. Not that all of our organizations are household names across the state, some more than others. But I can tell you that it's a little bit easier to connect to some of the resources here than in other places. So as a person who up until about 10 years ago, when I first was asked to join the GWB as a board member, I didn't know about the resources that were available here either. I just didn't know, because it would never came up. I work for a large company. We have our own resources. And it wasn't until I really engaged and understood that I began to bring learning back to my organization. We're a large, very large company, a global employer, but we can still learn these kinds of things about, in particular, how to connect and how to invest in development and training, and how to think more pipeline from not just what you need today, but also what you need to establish and build for your future. That's kind of strategic planning part that a Real Jobs gives you as an example. I mean, there's lots of examples. There's a Real Jobs, there's Back to Work, there's several others. There's organizations that support all that work, like Skills under Nina's leadership, that do a wonderful job. They all connect, and they're all trying to move the momentum in the same direction. So I say that not as many places have the connections that this state has. Dave earlier mentioned that both he and I are on the Career and Technical Education Board. That's just another connection that supports my GWB experience and connects to pretty much everyone on this call in some way, shape, or form. So we have the power to do that more easily than in other states. Think about Texas, and I don't know how many hundreds of workforce development areas they have, but in Rhode Island we have 2. So we're it's a little bit easier to connect and make those connections. So, when we think about all of the individuals and all of the organizations that do such great work, the CTE board and GWB can partner more easily with, say, a junior achievement to build pipelines into schools as early as middle schools, to talk about career development and to start exposing people to opportunities for growth and development. So I think that's something that gives us a little bit more power. What we have to do better is we have to network what in the GWB world we call network government. We need to have better connections and continue to improve on how we grow and we share, how we can mutualize funding sources, for example, how we can mutualize the programs and be better advocates for one another, so it's more effective, right? Because mutualizing and networking is really just simply about connection and seamlessness. I've long believed that our job at GWB, and my ultimate goal, is to make it so seamless for people who need support from any of our organizations, that they have one entry point into the workforce development system anywhere, and that entry point helps them connect to all of the things they need to connect to, because it's easy and seamless, and people are supported. Not, here's a phone number, call this one for this, or call that number for that, or speak to 4 other people for something else, right? We have the ability, the power to do that. That's in our hands. And hopefully with as we're coming out of the pandemic, the opportunity here for us is to make best use of the resources that are going to be available because of the pandemic, to set ourselves up for not tomorrow, for 5 years from now, for 10 years from now, for in the future, so that it's a highway into the future, right? And it's not a series of traffic jams that are starting and stopping the efforts of our employees and employers to be successful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that. Pat, we had a discussion recently about some of the work that your members are doing in our healthcare facilities in Rhode Island. And I know that, a great number of your members are women and women of color. And I'm just wondering, how can we help them elevate their career path? How is it through apprenticeship and portable or stackable credentials? What kind of investments do you think are necessary to move that forward?
Well, apprenticeship is definitely part of it. We've been, working with DLT and Apprenticeship Rhode Island. We've been able to move forward on a number of registered apprenticeship. The best example, is at one of our ambulatory facilities. We move people to an MA category, upskilled their license. They were eligible for a pay increase. It's a better, more culturally relevant care model, and improved outcomes for patients and improved patient satisfaction. So there's a lot of things that we can do through apprenticeship. Hospitals are places where there's, a lot of sort of built-in infrastructure around training people, and there's a lot of what I would call house titles that aren't necessarily transferable. So that's an area where we think that clearly we can do more and create career pathways. I know a number of people on this call have mentioned stackable credentials. That's something that we haven't fully executed on, but for instance, building out a customer service credential that's stackable, something that has to do with infection control, something that has to do with patient and customer service, things that have to do with HIM, medical records. Those things would be valuable to anyone who's in the healthcare sector. So that's an area where we're hoping to, and also just basic digital literacy. That's an area where we're hoping to up our efforts. One thing that's been a significant issue is access for people who are already in the workforce, so they can get into nursing classes. There's significant bottlenecks in some of the colleges, just because there aren't enough seats, aren't enough instructors. So unless you have a really, really strong GPA, you're not going to get to the next level. There was a movement. I think it slowed and paused because people have figured out that it's an equity issue as well, that every RN has to be a bachelor's, but that really means that we're going to have a wider, more affluent workforce. And if we want to create opportunity for people who are already in the healthcare workforce to move to nursing, improve their earnings, and have a real middle class, family sustaining wage, we can't erect barriers to that. So, we're in conversations with a lot of employers. We've negotiated funds with employers who've been supported, by your programs, Matt and Stefan, and it really has to do with how can we identify opportunities for people to get just a little space that they need, whether it's transportation or childcare, because most of our folks are already working, and they're taking on additional responsibilities, and they're usually running a household, and have multiple family members that depend on them. So it's really, really important that we kind of re-envision what is infrastructure, encourage employers to spend money on training, because training gives people a reason to stick around, and retention and recruitment, as I said earlier, really are just two sides of the same coin. So a hospital and many healthcare settings do present a lot of upward mobility. So our challenge is really to figure out ways to build those ladders and get to the point where it's scalable. And DLT has been a great partner, and as has Apprenticeship Rhode Island and Commerce. So we thank you for that, and looking forward to continuing to work in the healthcare sector, because that's an area where we know there's going to be growth, and we know that people can, as many of our panelists said earlier, they can earn while they learn. So thank you.
Pat, thank you for being such a great spokesperson for all these initiatives and for partnering to make them happen and leading them. Really appreciate it, Pat. Want to turn back to Nina, if you don't mind, Nina, and you picked up on one of Ms. Baird's themes around technology and its intersection with the workforce, and you've given thought to the way in which our economy is changing and the digital nomad phenomenon, the hybrid workplace, work condition, work scenario. And all of you have touched upon this, but Nina, I know you're participating in a number of dialogues right now in Rhode Island. What do you think this means for our state?
I think it means exciting opportunity. You know, even as I was listening to Patrick speak about the healthcare industry, you know, who thought 5 years ago that telemedicine would be here upon us this quickly, right? And even that is going to continue to grow and change. And so I think what we have, and because Rhode Island is so small, and because, as Mike Gray alluded to, we work on this networked government, and we have this ability in our state to have multiple intersections, I think we have an amazing moment in time to figure out how to do this well and actually become the leaders in the country on how do we look at digital technology across all industries, and how do we look at those non-traditional pathways to get up there. To go back to what Director Weldon was saying, so many job seekers have amazing talent and amazing skills. They just don't have the exposure, or they don't know the entry point in which to get into those areas. And I think that we're able to do that. We've done that successfully, Secretary Pryor, you know, in one of our banking institutions where we embedded non-traditional pathways for software engineers. We worked on the Back to Work initiative with Salesforce. And one of our biggest success stories with Salesforce is it was a 3-month paid training program, very decent wages to go through a 3-month training program. One of our biggest successes was a young woman with a high school diploma who became a Salesforce administrator, making now $90,000+ a year with a high school diploma. So these are real jobs, and these are real skills that we can train. And people have a natural proclivity towards technology in a way that I don't. I was not born with a computer in my hand, right? So we have a younger generation who has this natural gravitational pull towards technology. Let's use it. Let's give them the training that they deserve. Let's continue to partner with businesses, micro size, small size, mid size, large size, to figure out how to make them whole. And there's ways that technology can help gain efficiencies, right? So many of our small businesses that struggled in our state, it's not because they weren't hardworking. They are some of the hardest workers in our state. They didn't have the infrastructure or access to this, right? Melissa, we're working on a project right now on how to better support small businesses in this space. Shannon mentioned a training program that she ran, that parts of it were run virtually and people didn't have access to technology. So we started, as you know, a technology lending library, right? So we've got to think through these strategies holistically. And then I also think the other opportunity, Secretary Pryor, is because we are having this hybrid work environment, you can live in Rhode Island and work for Apple in California. You can live in Rhode Island and be able to work for a company in Texas, right? You could work for Texas Instrument, or you can work for some of these other global companies and live here. Hiring is going to move away more and more from this place-based model. And it's an opportunity for us to actually get access to jobs that may not have once existed in Rhode Island. If we have the talented workforce, and if we have a networked government that is working to educate from K-12 through higher eds, through tech training programs, through workforce development training programs, employers are just going to want Rhode Islanders. It's just that simple. And we have that opportunity to create that here.
We truly do. And want to ask another question of the whole group. You're right, Nina. We're still analyzing these data. They're not finalized or crystallized, but looks like Rhode Island in the pandemic period did see a net inflow of population, and some of our nearby states did not. And we all know, we've been tracking these economic data. We're seeing a strong recovery so far. We cannot rest on these laurels, but Moody's, as of last Friday, re-ranked the 50 states. We're number 6 in the country for our comeback since COVID, and we're number 1 in the entire Northeast for our rate of economic recovery. Now, we still know there are plenty of businesses, small businesses especially, that are struggling, and individuals that are vulnerable, and families that are struggling. So plenty of work to do, but we seem to be in a strong position coming out of COVID. So a question becomes, we're still seeing these worker shortages. We're hearing from many, many employers across sectors that still businesses are seeking, especially smaller businesses, are seeking workforce, but all sizes, and can't find it. Director Weldon has done something truly marvelous and an exemplar among state labor departments, which is the 401 Works program, new flexibility with our UI benefits, attaching to workers to bring, now by the thousands, workers back. But I want to ask you all in general, what else do you think are the contributing factors? What is driving the challenge that employers are facing to find the workforce they need?
So, Secretary Pryor, I'll jump in. And as you all know, we see about 1,000 job seekers a week through our doors who are applying to different jobs. And some of the recurring themes that we hear, childcare continues to be an issue. There is still a general fear of COVID. Now we're hearing the Delta variant. And then we're also hearing that they were burnt out in their jobs, right? Patrick, I think of healthcare and all the workers who've worked tirelessly. I kind of parallel this to after 9/11, there was such an amazing rush of people wanting to go in to be a first responder, right? Whether that was into our police departments, our fire departments, all that stuff. When COVID hit, everybody knew our healthcare workers were our heroes, but nobody rushed to those jobs, right? In fact, it was the opposite. We're also seeing the reverse on education, right? So people are not rushing into education anymore because it's now become an unknown. Now I don't know if I can teach in a hybrid model. I don't know. So we need to begin demystifying what people are fearful of. And there's a true fear out there. People are fearful of taking public transportation. And I think we underestimate how many people rely on public transportation to get back and forth to work. Ask ourselves, are we prepared to go on a bus with 50 people always questioning, am I safe? Am I going to get the virus? So these are real problems that Rhode Islanders are facing. They're tackling. Do I send my kids to summer camps that I can return to school now that we're hearing children who are not eligible for the vaccine are coming down with COVID? So there's a real fear that still exists. And the one thing that I will say, our Rhode Islanders are hard workers by nature. I do not believe they are staying home because they are making more money, right? That is, they might be getting money, but quality of life comes with full-scale interaction. People want to get back to work. People want to have the opportunity to get out of their house. They have cabin fever, but there is a general fear and anxiety that still exists. And those are some of the barriers that I think that we need to help folks overcome.
To jump on what Nina just said, a big significant portion of our clients and the community we work with are not on unemployment. They never were eligible. And they are incredibly fearful of entering into the workforce. And in particular, one of our biggest pipelines was into the hospitality industry. And I think people kind of are on top of being burnt out. It is not a friendly environment right now to enter into the service industries. People are tense and anxious, and the way that service industries, individuals are being treated, I think, is a big fearful jump for a lot of people that maybe don't have the skill sets in the interpersonal, the soft skills, the emotional intelligence to feel like they can take that kind of position on for what's still considerably low pay. So there is a lot of work to be done around this fear, and also the realities of the fact that for many there is literally no money holding them back. They're not on unemployment, and yet they're still not entering that job force.
Anyone else for comment on this subject? Yeah, please.
I would just second everything that Michelle and Nina said. People, a lot of trauma associated with this last, 15 months. And a lot of people are using it as an opportunity to figure out, do I really want to go back to what I was doing? And calibrating the risk reward. Whereas before they didn't really have that safety net. So I think, people are not jumping at the first job, and I'm not necessarily convinced that's a bad thing. People should have a career, not just a job. And they should have a family sustaining, career. And that's what we should strive for. So we do want people to get back to work. And I think, the feathering out and the work that Matt has done in his shop in terms of, supporting people, giving them replacement benefits so they don't fall off a cliff is extremely important, because people will find their way back into the workforce. thanks to the governor and the General Assembly, the minimum wage is up. So I think that will bring more people back. I wish we could have accelerated it faster, but I understand people were concerned, we can't go too fast too soon. So, but in theory, if we had put it to 15 on October 1st, there'd probably be more people. That the law of supply and demand applies to workers too. So, workers may be poor, but they're not stupid. They can figure stuff out. And I think the other thing that's really, really important is to, continue to try and drive that vaccination rate higher. That's a labor market issue. I mean, it's an issue in healthcare. There's a lot of hesitancy. So we got to figure out a way, because the higher we get the vaccination rate in the state, the more the things that Nina and other people mentioned go away, because there's less risk involved. So they go hand in hand. It's not the public over the private. They got to work together.
Those are great comments that, Pat, integrate a lot of the key points and a lot of the key initiatives under the McKee administration and beyond. I think, Director, we want to maybe ask one last question to make sure that any participant makes any point they still have.
Yeah, I think if anybody has anything to add, we'd ask you to please do that now. We really appreciate all this. It's super important that we're working together. It's network government, but it's also a community that we have to work as to get things to go the way we need them to go to help people. So thank you.
I'll make one point that I think is relevant here is that if people remember 18 months ago, there was a labor shortage then. It was for different reasons. The unemployment rate was low, and people were struggling to find people to work. Their unemployment rate here is higher. People are still struggling for people to find people to work. Dynamics are very different. So if we as employers, as putting my employer hat on for a moment, feel as though we can approach the workforce the same way we did before the pandemic. Not only were we struggling then, but the pressures were significantly different. I think the same is true for the workforce development system, is that we must all realize that we're not going to snap back to where we were 18 months ago with a 3 point whatever % unemployment and difficulty finding workers because for another reason. It's a different world, and we have to react. And I don't think we know yet what that actually means, but we will certainly find out given the amount of given time. So, that is something I think about every day. I've been struggling to find employees for 3 or 4 years, but now it's for different reasons. And we have to be prepared to and have a set of decisions that we have to make that are different than what we had to make before.
Well said, Chair Gray.
I would say, to bring this back full circle to where we started with Zoe's conversation and pretty much interwoven within the thread of the conversation, the technology component. I think Michelle and Nina, the folks you're seeing that have, hesitation about going into the workforce, the ability to work remotely, the ability to allow them to access that technology. I know, Nina, we've faced the same challenge with getting them access to computers, laptops, whether it's borrowing or renting or whatever, to be able to help them do that, to be able to give them that training right from high school. I'm actually going to speak to high school students right now, obviously selfishly for my industry, to tell them, hey, you don't have to leave home. You can make major money right from home, but we have to give them the tools to be able to do that. But I think trying to figure that out, there may be people that you see every day, Michelle, that would have a career that they don't even have access to. They have never had any exposure to even understanding what that looks like, or they're still thinking about someone in a back room. They don't understand that it's kind of high tech and some really slick technology now. So I think that's the important, and how do we all do a good job getting the word out there, getting the messaging, and getting in front of them to make them feel comfortable about understanding the different choices that they have, and give them that tools to empower themselves. I think that's the most important thing that we can do. I want to thank all of you, because I think this is fantastic. I think Secretary Pryor, you're always amazing. Matt, you have just didn't even skip a beat, took the helm, and just, really total rock star. Everyone on this call, amazing people. Shannon, nice to see you. I haven't seen you in ages, but I think this is really important. I think this is absolutely
Really is.
super important. And I think the people of, to summarize what Mike said, it's really great. The people of Rhode Island, I don't think they realize how closely we all work and what a great network and support and resources you have. But you have to come to the table. You have to actually tell us what it is you're looking to do so that we can figure out a way to help you.
Well said, Melissa. It's a great note to end on. We want to thank Zoe Baird. We want to thank Shannon, Dave, Mike, Nina, Michelle, Pat, and Melissa for really bringing forth this crucial conversation. Much more to talk about as pertains to the workforce. There'll be opportunities for this going forward. I also want to note that this is our ninth session, This is our ninth session, the Rhode Island 2030 conversation. We are going to, in a future session, do a recap where we describe the things we've heard across these 9 going on 10 sessions and start to derive lessons learned and implications for policy making going forward and for investment going forward. So stay tuned for that and for topical sessions that we will soon be announcing on the governor's Facebook page. So thank you so much for tuning in. What a great session. Big reason why Director Matt Weldon and the team at DLT that he leads are doing a phenomenal job in the workforce space, and great job facilitating today, Director. Thank you very much.
And thank you, everybody, very much.
Really appreciate it. We're going to close out for the evening. Have a good one.